Imagine the rhythmic pulse of the planet suddenly skipping a beat, then falling into a permanent, chilling silence. For eons, the great ocean currents have acted as the Earth's circulatory system, carrying warmth, oxygen, and life to every corner of the globe. But imagine a reality where that ancient pump has stalled, leaving behind a world where the water no longer breathes and the blue horizon has begun to harden into something unrecognizable. This is not the end of the world through fire or flood, but a slow, crystalline transformation into a silent, acidic tomb. The first signs are subtle, noted only by sensors deep in the North Atlantic. The great conveyor belt, the engine of the seas, begins to lose its momentum. As the currents slow, the oxygen that once fueled the depths begins to vanish. In its absence, the chemistry of the abyss undergoes a radical shift. The life-giving salt water we once knew is replaced by a heavy, stagnant solution, a corrosive brine that no longer sustains life but preserves it in a terrifying, distorted form. The ocean becomes a vast vat of acidic glass, a place where the waves are mere ripples on a thickening, viscous surface. Without the movement of water to cycle nutrients and gases, the very nature of the liquid begins to change. The pH levels plummet, turning the sea into a mild but relentless acid. This chemical shift triggers a strange reaction in the marine minerals. Instead of dissolving, the calcium and carbonates begin to precipitate out in jagged, hypersaturated forms. The vibrant coral reefs, once the rainforests of the sea, do not simply die. They petrified. Their delicate branches turn into razor-sharp limestone blades, glistening like shattered mirrors in the dim light of the surface. As the oxygen retreats toward the thin layer of atmosphere, the creatures of the deep find themselves trapped in a world of suffocation. Evolution, usually a process of millions of years, takes a desperate, dark turn. Fish do not float to the surface to rot, they become heavy with the minerals of the new ocean. They sink into the depths, their tissues slowly replaced by the encroaching crystals. In these airless voids, the biology of the deep becomes a matter of geology. Sharks and rays, once the masters of the current, become calcified statues, their bodies hardening into lithic forms that crawl slowly across the seabed on brittle, obsidian-like fins. The visual landscape of this new ocean is one of haunting beauty and absolute horror. Beneath the waves, the glass graveyards stretch for thousands of miles. These are the places where the great whales come to rest. In a healthy ocean, a whale fall is a feast for the deep, a source of life for years. But in the ocean of glass, there is no decay. The acidic brine and the lack of microbes have mummified these giants. They lie on the seabed, encased in a translucent layer of salt and mineral crust, their massive skeletons visible through a shroud of crystalline growth. They look like monuments in a museum of a world that forgot how to live. The surface of the water loses its familiar spray and foam. Without the currents to stir the pot, the ocean becomes oily and heavy. When the wind blows, it no longer kicks up whitecaps, instead, it creates heavy, rhythmic thuds against the shore. The smell is no longer the fresh scent of brine, but a sharp, metallic tang of sulfur and vinegar. Standing on the coast, one feels the weight of the water. It is a presence, a heavy liquid lens that magnifies the terrifying stillness of the world below. In the mid-depths, the snow of glass falls perpetually. These are not organic flakes, but tiny shards of mineralized plankton and crystallized salts that drift down through the dark. They catch what little light penetrates the surface, creating a shimmering, deadly fog. For any submersible attempting to navigate these waters, the danger is no longer just pressure, but the abrasive nature of the medium itself. The water eats at the hulls, and the sharp mineral drifts can clog intakes and blind sensors in seconds. It is a landscape that rejects intrusion, a kingdom of silence that has sealed itself off from the sunlit world. The psychological toll on those who watch from the shore is immense. There is a primal fear in seeing the most dynamic force on our planet turn into a static, hardening trap. The conflict is no longer between nations, but between a species and its environment, a desperate struggle to understand a transition that seems irreversible. We are witnessing the birth of a new kind of wilderness, one that is beautiful, sharp, and entirely indifferent to the requirements of carbon-based life. The ocean is not dying in the traditional sense, it is reconfiguring itself into a state of mineral perfection. As the oxygen-depleted zones expand, the stagnant water begins to release gases that were once trapped in the deep. Methane and hydrogen sulfide rise in slow, heavy bubbles, popping on the surface with a sound like breaking glass. The atmosphere above the coastlines grows thick and hazy, a yellow-tinted fog that clings to the cliffs. It is a reminder that the ocean and the sky are parts of a single machine, and when one part stops, the other begins to falter. The weather patterns that once dictated the rhythm of our lives have become erratic, stalled by the lack of thermal exchange from the water. This atmospheric shift begins to suffocate the land as well. The coastal cities, once the crown jewels of civilization, become the front lines of a new kind of respiratory crisis. The wind no longer carries the promise of a cool breeze, it carries a fine, caustic dust, the residue of dried acidic brine and pulverized mineral salts. This acid dust settles on the lungs of every living thing, causing a slow, scarring degradation. Trees along the coastlines begin to wither, their leaves coated in a fine white crust that prevents them from breathing. The birds that once thrived on the bounty of the sea disappear, finding no sustenance in the sharp, crystalline waters. Deep within the trenches, where the pressure is greatest, the transformation is most complete. Here, the water is no longer a liquid but a supercritical fluid, a dense, hot slurry of minerals and acid. The creatures here have become entirely lithic, living stones that move with the agonizing slowness of tectonic plates. They are the heralds of the glass ocean, the first inhabitants of a world where biology and geology are indistinguishable. To look upon them is to see a future where the soft pulse of flesh is replaced by the cold, enduring hardness of the crystal. The whale sculptures of the abyssal plains are perhaps the most tragic icons of this era. A mother and calf, frozen in a final descent, their bodies now a latticework of white calcite and translucent salts. They are preserved perfectly, down to the texture of their skin, yet they are as cold and inanimate as the rocks they lie upon. They serve as a warning of the stagnation's reach. This is a graveyard that does not permit the dignity of dust, it demands the permanence of stone. In this landscape, the conflict lies in the realization that the ocean was never just a body of water, but a living, breathing entity. By stopping its heart, the chemistry of the earth has been allowed to reclaim it. The ocean of glass is a masterpiece of chemical equilibrium, a place of perfect, terrifying balance. It is a world where every drop of water is a potential shard, and every wave is a grinding movement of liquid stone. Humanity's response to this change is one of paralyzed awe. We have built our civilizations on the assumption that the sea would always be our mirror, reflecting our vitality and our movement. But as we look into the still, acidic depths, we see a mirror that is cracked. The reflection is distorted, showing us a version of our world where the life has been bled out, replaced by a cold, crystalline structure that will endure long after we are gone. It is a beauty that kills, a silence that screams of a lost equilibrium. Scientists working in the few remaining deep-sea stations report a sound that haunts their sleep. It is not the song of whales or the clicking of shrimp. It is a low, constant grinding, the sound of a trillion crystals rubbing against one another as the heavy, stagnant tides shift. It is the sound of the ocean setting, like concrete or ice, turning from a fluid cradle into a solid tomb. They call it the grinding of the glass, a mechanical dirge for a world that used to flow. The technological failure in this environment is absolute. Modern vessels, designed for the buoyancy and chemistry of saltwater, find themselves woefully unprepared for the acidic slurry of the stagnant sea. Steel hulls that were meant to last decades are pitted and scarred within months. Optical sensors, the eyes of our underwater drones, become frosted and opaque as the abrasive mineral snow scours their surfaces. We are becoming blind to the depths at the very moment we need to see them most. One of the last recordings from a station near the Mariana Trench captures a chilling observation. The station's reinforced windows were not being crushed by pressure, but were being slowly integrated into the surrounding mineral growth. The sea was not trying to break in, it was trying to turn the station into part of the reef. The transition of the vegetation is equally harrowing. Kelp forests that once swayed in the current have become brittle forests of obsidian. Their leaves are no longer flexible, they are sharp as scalpels, clashing together in the dark with a metallic chime. Any creature caught in these forests is shredded in seconds, their remains becoming part of the mineral carpet that covers the seafloor. The forests have become traps, beautiful and deadly, shimmering with an internal light that comes from the high mineral content of their new, petrified bodies. As the years of stagnation turn into decades, the very color of the ocean changes. The deep blue is replaced by a murky, translucent green, the color of thick bottle glass. When the sun hits the surface at the right angle, the entire horizon gleams with a terrifying, artificial brilliance. It is as if the planet has grown a hard, protective shell over its most vulnerable part. But this shell is not for protection, it is the byproduct of a system that has lost its ability to recycle, to breathe, and to heal. The petrified predators that now roam the shallows are perhaps the most unsettling sight. Crabs with shells like quartz, fish with scales of flint, all moving with a heavy, labored gait. They no longer hunt for food in the traditional sense, they absorb the minerals from the water, their bodies slowly becoming more stone than flesh. They are the golems of the sea, the silent sentinels of the glass ocean. They are proof that life will find a way to persist, even if that way is a nightmare of calcification and acid. There is no easy villain in this story, no single point of blame. It is the result of a million small shifts that finally broke the back of the great current. The tragedy lies in the permanence of the change. Once the chemistry of the ocean has tipped into this hypersaturated, acidic state, there is no simple way to turn it back. We are left to watch as the world's greatest wild space becomes a museum of its own demise, a gallery of salt and glass where the only movement is the slow, grinding growth of crystals. The mouth of the abyss, once a place of mystery and wonder, has become a jagged throat of mineral spikes. Explorers who once dreamed of finding new species now find only new forms of desolation. They map the salt canyons and the acidic plains, documenting a world that feels increasingly alien. The data they bring back is a cold comfort, it explains the chemistry, but it cannot explain the loss of the soul of the sea. In the final analysis, the ocean of glass is a testament to the fragility of the systems we take for granted. It is a dark reminder that the Earth does not owe us a hospitable environment, it merely provides one as long as the balances are maintained. When those balances fail, the world does not just end, it transforms. It becomes something new, something hard, and something that has no place for the soft, breathing things of the surface. As the sun sets over the still, heavy water, the reflections are no longer soft. They are sharp and jagged, dancing across the surface of the acidic brine like light off a broken window. The sound of the waves hitting the shore is a series of hard, crystalline cracks. The ocean has become a monument to its own silence, a vast, vitreous expanse that holds the history of life in a cold, unyielding grip. We are left on the shore, looking out at a world of glass, wondering if we will ever hear the pulse of the living sea again. The conflict of the future will not be fought over land or gold, but over the memory of the water. How do we survive on a planet where the heart has stopped? How do we find hope in a landscape that has turned to stone? These are the questions that echo in the sulfurous air, carried by winds that no longer feel the cooling touch of the currents. The ocean of glass remains, a shimmering, deadly masterpiece, waiting for the next era of the world to begin, even if we are not there to see it.